Kale is such a perfect winter crop. When the cold kicks in, it turns them sweet.
God, this stuff is just beautiful. Look at that, the colors of it.
Bringing the people behind our food to life.
I like to take a little bit, like a teaspoon or so of olive oil and rub it on the potatoes before I cook them. I cook them for about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the size of the potato. Today we're going to be doing one of my favorite winter recipes, which is double baked potatoes. But I like to dress it up a little bit with some of the winter's best vegetables. A little bit of lacinato kale, which is also called cavallo nero, and caramelized onions deglazed with an Irish stout beer. To start, we're going to heat up some oil in a large pan. We need it to be large enough so that we can get a lot of space so we can caramelize the onions. Now, you might be tempted to go on a really high heat to get the onions brown, but that's actually a mistake because it'll make the onions fairly bitter. So what we want to do is slowly caramelize them, lovingly caramelize them. So maybe even 20 to 30 minutes to slowly caramelize the sugars in the onions and make them sweeter. So I add my olive oil to the pan first, and once it's shimmering, I add my onions. And begin to saute them. After about 15 minutes, when they begin to get nice and brown and sort of stuck to the bottom of the pan, we're going to add a little bit of the stout to deglaze the pan. What that means is we're going to get the little yummy brown bits on the bottom of the pan to come up with the beer, and it's going to create an evenly brown and delectable sweet onion flavor. Next, we're going to work on the kale. So my favorite thing about this dish is lacinato kale. This has become a really popular kale in the supermarkets and farmers markets lately. And one of the reasons is it's got an incredibly tender texture. They call it dinosaur kale because it has, as you might imagine, a sort of wrinkly texture like maybe dinosaur skin. In Italy, it's commonly used in minestrones. It's called a bean green. I love to just braise it simply with onions or a little bit of bacon. The thing about lacinato kale, as with all other kales, is the stems can be quite tough. They cook at a different rate than the leaves. So instead of using a knife, I just tear the tender leaves off of the stem, and then this can be used in stalks, or you can actually chop it up finely and use it in a braised kale dish. So we're going to take a small pile of leaves, bunch it up together, and just give it a rough chop. You need to bring the potatoes out of the oven for about 10 to 15 minutes to let them cool slightly before you begin to scoop out the flesh on the inside. Otherwise, you can burn yourself. Now our onions are ready to go. We've got a nice brown on them. And I'm going to add a little bit of our stout. Stir around the pan. And as the stout evaporates, I'm going to add a little bit more. Turn up our heat just a little bit. Our beer is almost evaporated, so I'm going to add a little bit more. This helps break down the onions so they'll be nice and soft when we put them in our filling. And we're just about ready to add our kale. It looks like a lot of kale at first, just like it did with the onions, but as it cooks, it begins to break down, so the volume's going to be quite a bit less. So we'll add 1 handful and use a pair of heavy tongs to stir. This is also why it's really important to use a large pan. A wok, it works well for this because you handle a lot of volume. So your little tiny skillet you make grilled cheeses in isn't going to work for this. It has to be a large pan. We're going to do 1 more handful of the kale. Give it a quick stir. Cover it and let it sort of steam saute for about 5 minutes to help break down the plant fibers. And then we'll be ready to stuff our potatoes. So our potatoes have been resting, so they're no longer atomic hot, so we can get it in and make them into little shells. I like to use a serrated knife, and with a sawing motion, cut off maybe the top quarter of the potato, and open it up. And I like to do them all in a row so you can let some of the steam escape. They will be quite hot, thus the term hot potato. You want to look for, when you're shopping for these, for russets that are all relatively the same size. If you have some very large ones and smaller ones, they won't cook at the same time, and the larger ones are going to be not cooked all the way through, and the small ones will be cooked quickly. So what we want to do here is make a shell. We want about 1/4 of an inch all the way around the potato. So I cut a shallow bit of flesh and then scoop out the middle. You don't want to go too deeply because we want the potato to be able to hold this like a little boat. We don't want to tear the skin where the filling might leak out. And then don't forget the top flesh from the top that you cut away. That can be used for the filling as well. We're going to mound these quite a bit. This recipe, mixing mashed potatoes with kale and onions, is actually a very common thing in Ireland. My grandmother used to make this every Sunday for our Sunday supper after church. It's called Cole Cannon, and it varies from country kitchen to country kitchen in Ireland, but generally the commonality is potatoes, lots of Irish butter, and kale, and maybe a little bit of green onions if you have them. So now we're going to take our potatoes and we're going to mash them. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of butter, or butter, as the Irish call it. About 1 cup of buttermilk, or you can use regular 2% milk. And then I'm going to add a little bit of dried mustard to add a little bit of spice to this. And it actually gives your tongue the perception that you've got a little more cheese in it than you actually do. So it's a lower fat way of adding a little tang. And then I'm going to do a good sprinkling of salt. Potatoes take quite a bit of salt. And then freshly ground pepper. At this point, you could get creative. If you like things a little spicy, you can add a little bit of cayenne pepper. Or you can make them Southwestern style and add some New Mexican chili powder, cumin. Kale is a great vegetable because the flavors of it are really amenable to lots of other spices besides just butter and salt and pepper. So we want a few little lumps in this. My grandmother always made these with a few lumps. That's a good thing. It's a country dish. Once we have them fairly smooth, with a few lumps for texture, we're going to go ahead and add our kale and onion mixture. So our kale's been cooking and is all buttery and soft now, just after 5 minutes. That's one of the things I love about lacinato kale. And we're going to stir the two together. Just gently fold it. You don't want it to mix up too much, or the beautiful ivory mashed potatoes will turn oniony brown. So gentle stir, and then we're going to taste it for flavor and see where we are with salt and pepper. Excellent. And now the fun part, we get to load them into our potato shells. Because we use the flesh from the top of the potatoes as well as the bottom, we're going to get a lot more filling than it looks like the potatoes can hold, and that's a great thing. We get to mound it up really high. These are a great vegetarian main dish. One potato can really This size is really enough for a meal, especially with all of the hearty kale, which is full of iron, which is really great for vegetarians. But if you are a meat eater, you can always serve this with perhaps a little bit of roasted chicken. And then we're going to take them and sprinkle them with Irish cheddar, if you can get it, or a local cheddar, but make sure it's sharp. Sharp cheese, nice and tangy. And we're going to also mound that on the top, pressing in a little bit so you don't get as many escaped bits of cheese. Now, if you were doing these ahead, you can fix them up to this point. Wrap them in plastic wrap and just throw them in the oven whenever you're ready. So we're going to throw back in a 400-degree oven and bake them until the cheese is bubbly, about 20 minutes. If you've done them ahead and they've cooled to room temperature, they're cold from the refrigerator, you need to bake them a little bit longer, maybe about 40 minutes. Serve these twice-baked potatoes as a vegetarian main course or alongside a seared lamb chop. If you are going to serve it to vegetarians, it's great to have a salad of thinly sliced apples and baby greens with a pungent vinaigrette to counterpoint the richness of the potatoes. These are a great way to introduce kale to your family, especially if you have any kids in the house who are picky eaters.
Okay. And one more time without your hand.
Okay, and all right, go ahead and put her in the bowl.